Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pulse of the Ring, and I have a special guest right now. You may have seen him on WWE, AEW, NWA, TNA. He is legitimately the hardest working man on the indie scene. He also does an amazing job with Make-A-Wish. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Chico Adams.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really
No,
excited to be.
I appreciate it. Appreciate it. For those who don't know, me and Chico have wrestled each other like a lot in
Yeah.
my wrestling career. He's probably one of my favorite people to wrestle.
Oh, thank you.
Um, so, so many places I want to start. Actually, let's start with the Make a Wish Foundation. So you do a lot of volunteer work with Make a Wish. So explain to everyone how that got started and things that you're doing within Make a Wish.
My cousin had leukemia many years ago in the late 90s, and that was my first introduction because I never heard of it prior to that. And so I'm from Massachusetts, as many people may know. My cousin lives in Massachusetts as well, but her wish was to do Disney for the week. So Make-A-Wish flew her and her immediate family down here to Orlando to do Disney for the whole week. And it really meant a lot to her and to all of us. And she's doing really well. She's married, has a daughter. She's doing
Nice.
really well. But that Make-A-Wish experience really helped make a difference, as it does for many people.
Mhm.
A couple of years later, when I was in middle school, I had a friend that unfortunately he had a brain tumor, but his wish was he was a huge SpongeBob fan, like obsessed with SpongeBob. So his wish was to have like a honorary luncheon with all the
Mhm.
SpongeBob creators, like the voice of SpongeBob, the creators. They showed him like never before seen,
Wow.
clips. They even did at the time. This was 2003. They did a
Mhm.
specialized answering machine message from the voice of SpongeBob, like the actual voice.
Yeah.
So I remember him calling me that night, and he was telling me all about it, and like just to hear the excitement in his voice. This was someone who had gone through so much, physically, mentally,
Mhm.
emotionally. Sadly, he passed away not too long after that. But one of the last conversations I had was him telling me how great of a time he had, how it was the best day of his life. And so those are my two personal experiences with it. And then, of course, being a big fan of wrestling growing up, you would hear WWE referring to Make a Wish, and of course, John Cena
Yeah.
granting all these wishes. And so, between my personal experiences and between seeing WWE talking about it and John Cena doing that, that really inspired me to want to get involved and give back as well. So I started volunteering in early 2017, so a little over 8 years. And yeah, I volunteer as much as I can. Events, they're sporadic. Sometimes
Yeah.
I'll do, like for a couple weeks ago, I did two events within 2 days of each other. Sometimes
Mhm.
I might go months without doing one, but it's kind of like wrestling. I'll reach out to them, they'll reach out to me and say, "Hey, we have this event. If you're free, we'd love to have you." And anytime I'm available, I'll do it. And each event is different. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's us interacting with the children. Sometimes it's former wish granters or former wish children. They'll do like alumni day type
Yeah.
events. Other times there'll be like Halloween events where we're giving out like a trick or treat candy, things like that.
Mhm.
So every event's different, but it's also very creative and very exciting, and it's just very rewarding all around.
Um, and how would anyone get involved or who would want to get involved with Make a Wish? What's your best advice on how they can like volunteer?
I know when I did it, I went on the website and there was a link where you can apply, and I was on the waiting list for a little bit, not too
Mhm.
long. But of course, they do like background checks, and there's a lot of people that do want to become volunteers. So there may be a waiting list, but if you go under the Make-A-Wish Central and Northern Florida website, there should be a link there. If someone can't find it, please reach out to me personally, and I'll be happy to do my best to point you in the right direction.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So to now go into the wrestling aspect.
Mm.
So you've been wrestling now, it's going on over 10 years, right?
It'll be actually 14 years this coming
Woo!
next month.
Dang.
Yeah.
So what initially made you want to become a professional wrestler?
I got bit by the wrestling bug during the Attitude Era in 1998, thanks to Stone Cold Steve Austin. Um,
As many people.
prior to wrestling, I've always been enamored with entertainment. I love
Hmm.
watching movies, TV shows, video games, as most kids do. But when wrestling came along, it captured all of that to me. But yeah, Stone Cold Steve Austin was the mecca. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing his face on T-shirts or hearing his name mentioned or being on magazine covers. And one day I was like, I knew of him, but I was like,
Yeah.
what's the hype around this guy? Like, there's got to be something to it. So my plan was to sit down and watch one episode of Raw, and that's it. Never watch it again,
Hmm.
just to see like what the big deal is. And then
Yeah.
of course, something happened at the end. They're like, "What's gonna happen? Tune in next Monday." Like, oh man, I wasn't going to, but I want to see what happens. So, all right, I'll watch next week's, and that's it. And then,
Yeah.
of course, something else happened, and before you know it, I got hooked. And then it wasn't long after that, I was like, you know what? Like, this is what I want to do. I love
Hmm.
entertainment. I love being behind the camera, but I like being in front of the camera even more. And yeah, I just never lost that passion. Every day that went by, I wanted it more and more. And then it was one of those things like I just couldn't live without that thought of like, even if
Hmm.
I tried doing something else, like I know like my heart would always lead me back to wrestling. So after college, I moved to Florida and never looked back.
So you didn't start training for wrestling until you moved to Florida, correct?
Sort of, yeah. So in high school, in my senior year, during spring break, my dad and I flew down to Atlanta, and I did a 3-day camp at the WWA4 school in Atlanta,
Okay.
which is now owned by AR Fox. But this was
Mhm.
actually AR Fox was a new student there, so he and I
Oh,
got to go work a little bit. This was like before he had his first match.
yeah.
I don't think he remembers that, but yeah, this was April. This was April 2007. I got to
Hmm.
train with Elix Skipper the first night. Mr. Hughes, Sam Shaw was there, who's now Dexter Loomis. So that was my first taste of wrestling training. My parents really wanted me to go to college. I kind of didn't want to, but I was like, all right, it can't hurt. So I went to college for 4 years, and then same thing, never lost that passion. And then when I graduated, 1 week later, I moved to Ocala, Florida, originally to pursue wrestling. And the reason I chose Florida was I always liked Florida. I always loved
Hmm.
the weather. I'm from a small town in Massachusetts where there's nothing going on, so I
Yeah.
wanted to live. I always liked the theme park concept, Disney, Universal, but also I wanted to be close to wherever WWE was. At
Yeah.
the time this is before the PC, they had FCW in Tampa. So I thought, strategically, I want to be as close to that as possible. That way, if they need me, I'm right there. And so,
Hmm.
uh, I think a lot of people have that mindset. And as you know, Florida is very
Yeah.
oversaturated with great talent. So sometimes people ask me, like, what if you had stayed in New England? And, maybe you would have become a bigger name up there. I'm like,
Hmm.
I don't know, but I have no regrets.
Because I know with
Everything.
me, it was when I got out the military, I immediately knew that I wanted to like pursue wrestling.
Mm,
And me not understanding, because I didn't know about indie wrestling really until I got to Florida
right.
for training. I actually tweeted to Triple H because this is
Ugh.
right when they announced like the performance center. I was like, "Yo, can I use my GI Bill to like be a student at the school?" Because I just didn't know. Because
Yeah.
again, I knew that they were doing it in Florida, and I knew that if I wanted to be close to potentially like just being a manager or a referee or something
Mm,
working with the WWE, that I should move to Florida. So that was always like my thought press. Little did I know, again, yes, oversaturated
yeah.
with not only good talent, but just wrestling in general.
Mhm.
Like you can throw a rock from one wrestling school and you hit another wrestling
Exactly.
school. It's crazy,
Mhm.
but it it was a fun time being down in Florida, and you never know like who you might meet at an indie show, and that's what I try to tell people all the time
Mhm.
is yes, going to these major promotions is fun, but don't forget about local professional wrestling. And
Mhm.
seeing that I didn't know about it, that's why I'm a big enthusiast of go to local wrestling shows because you never know who you might see on the
Mhm.
indies that will be there, like in the WWE, in TNA, in AEW. And
For
what
sure.
are
Yeah.
what are your thoughts about like people going to indie wrestling events and showcasing them?
No, indie wrestling is the lifeblood of what we do. I mean, you look at the major stars on TV right now, even Cody Rhodes, even though Cody had started with WWE, he asked for his release, what, almost 10 years ago, and
Mhm.
he reinvented himself in such a big way on the indie scene, which, helped with, the creation of AEW, so I don't think, I mean, Cody's like incredibly talented. I'm so
Yeah.
happy to see where he is now, but I honestly feel like by him leaving and him reinventing himself I feel like he brought in a new wave of fans, and I feel like that's a big factor in why he's in the position he's in today. Not that he didn't already have the talent and the name before,
Hmm.
but that time away, and of course, by going to creating AEW and that new platform, like all of that is a big contributor to why he's in the position he's in right now, in my opinion. But yeah, indie wrestling is so important. You look at guys like Seth Rollins, and you have, of course, we mentioned Cody Rhodes. Even in AEW, we have John Moxley. Like all these guys started off in the indies, and that's where they hone their craft. That's where they make connections. And the biggest stars you see on TV wouldn't be there today if not for indies. So very, very important. I can't stress that enough. Just
Hmm.
if you're a new wrestler or if you're, you know, an aspiring wrestler, like don't neglect putting your time in the indies. Travel, even if you're not booked on a show, like hop in a car with someone on the show, pick their brains, pick the vet's brains. Ask questions. I
Hmm.
mean, if you want it, like it's there. It's like going to college. You got
Yeah.
to invest your time and your effort and your money. And there's no guarantees, but if you do the right things, it could lead for you having, a possible full-time living in that field. But yeah, I just can't stress that enough. Just making connections, like I mentioned, you might meet someone and you might think like, I'll never see that guy again. Well, 5 years from now, he might be working in talent relations, or he might
Hmm.
be a booker for a company you want to work for. So it's important to be humble and be professional, and just be respectful to everyone always, because you never know who's who. You hear that saying all
Yeah.
the time: the people you see on the way up, the same you see on the way down. And it's very true.
So you saying that, or with it being nearly your 14-year anniversary to you beginning your pro wrestling
Mm.
career, words. What keeps you going? Because for me, like my body just kind of gave out on me, and I decided like it's better just to be able to play with my kids when I have them.
Mm.
So, in your eyes, what keeps you going? And yeah, it makes you stay in love with wrestling.
Honestly, I feel like I still have more to prove, and still things that I haven't, like stuff on my bucket list that I haven't done yet. Like a big one for me is TNA is one of like the biggest companies that I have yet to have a match for. I've done like pretty much everything,
Yeah,
security. I've done backstage stuff for them.
a
Um,
doctor.
yeah, doctor. I was alcoholic in an AA meeting, so that was fun. But yeah, I really want to have a match for TNA. That's like huge on my bucket list this year. But I feel like as time goes on, I'm checking off more bucket list items
Hmm.
and getting closer and closer to where I want to be. Like I had the honor of doing Madison Square Garden last month, which was awesome. A year ago, I got to work with The Rock, which I never could have predicted that would happen. I did Ring of Honor last year, so some bucket list items. I want to do TNA, like I mentioned. I'd love to have a live match on SmackDown because I've done Raw and NXT.
Hmm.
I would love to wrestle in Japan or overseas in general. I have my passport, but wrestling overseas is something that I haven't done just yet. But also, I think my biggest goal at this point is to, of course, my goal has always been to sign with WWE in a full time capacity, even if they're like, hey, we want you to be a mouthpiece for someone or
Hmm.
in a managerial role or a writer. Like I would be open to that as well. But yeah, working full time with WWE and being able to support me, and I don't have kids yet, but my wife and I have four cats to feed. So if I'm able to support myself and my family from professional wrestling 100%, then to me, I look back on it and say, you know what, all of that was worth it. But I always say this: even if it ended tomorrow, I've done so many things that I'm very proud of, and I have no regrets. And just to be able to inspire other people as well is huge for me. Like a couple months back, I had a former Make a Wish kid reach out to me who's now a referee, and he's like, "Hey, I met you years ago, but I want to let you know that you inspired me, and now I'm a referee, and thank you for that." And I was like,
Hmm.
"Wow, I had no idea that sometimes we lose sight. We're so focused on getting to the next town or the next goal that we don't realize the impact we have on other people. So to know that I inspired even just one person, to me, that makes it all worth it right there, though."
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So you currently train at the Hart Dungeon, who
Mm,
is Natty and Tyson Kidd.
mm.
What is some of the best advice they've given you?
They're really big, not just them, but WWE in general, really big on being aggressive and being intense, making
Hmm.
noise, making everything matter. And that's something that I think I struggled with for a while was being aggressive, not, yeah, being aggressive, but also being intense because, in reality, I'm a nice person. So like in the
Yeah.
back of my mind, I'm always like, I don't want to hurt anybody. But at the same time, like you have to lay it in and make it look good. So the biggest advice is just, yeah, being intense, being aggressive, being mean, being able to flip that switch when you're stepping in the ring, and then things happen. Apologize later, but also just obviously the camera. TV is really big, and being able to work on the fly in the realm of what time you have. For example, in the Indies, it's a little bit more lenient, but WWE, you might have a 10-minute match planned, and then right before you walk out, they go, oh, now you got 2 minutes. Okay. Or the bell rings. Hey guys, they gave you an extra 3 minutes. Being able to adapt and work on the fly, especially when you're on live TV in front of thousands in an arena,
Hmm.
millions worldwide. I mean, some people aren't able to handle that pressure, and sometimes you don't know until you're in that moment. So we do stuff like that in training where they might, you know, change something last minute, and then you have to be able to adapt because it's like Natty always says, it's good to have that reference. It's good to know in training, even, possibly getting blown up, like doing certain drills where, you feel like Natty always says, you feel like you swallowed the cactus and you still have minutes left. You have to know how to defend that because what if you're on TV and you're experiencing that for the first time? You've never felt
Hmm.
that way before. Whereas, so they're getting us ready in training so that we are prepared for any and every situation, whether it's TV, whether it's a live event, whether it's the indies, just to make us as well rounded as possible.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Um, so what aspects of wrestling do you feel is the most challenging? The physical or the mental part of it?
I think both. I think with physical, like especially as we get older, and especially if you're wrestling quite often, is that like Natty always says too, like everyone's dealing with something,
Hmm.
especially those who've been doing this for many years. We all have some type of injury or some type of issue going on, whether it's physical, mental, and being able to work through that. But of course, like you mentioned, there's the mental aspect of it. There's the politics, there's the who there's especially I'm not obviously signed, but if you're on TV and you have social media, people online talking trash about you or saying things that aren't true,
Yeah.
there's might be fake profiles out there, which can be stressful. So I definitely think it's both physical and mental to that degree. So it's kind of hard to pick one to the other because I feel like there's a mixture of both there.
Hmm.
But that's one thing that I've learned a lot over the years. Like when I first got into wrestling, I was very, very naive. Like I mentioned, coming from a small town, and so I found out the hard way how life can be, and I got screwed over by certain people. But it made me learn not to be as trustworthy and learn
Hmm.
to kind of pick and choose your battles and learn how to talk to people and how to negotiate things like that. So it's definitely a mentally tough business for sure. But as time goes on, I feel like you kind of learn how to navigate your way, but the physical aspect is always there as well. And of course, injuries happen anytime. You can be the safest wrestler in the world. You can practice all the time. And sometimes things happen, even off of things that might not seem like a big deal. I mean, there's people who have gotten injured, climbing the ropes to do their entrance or slapping the mat as part of their entrance. They, pull out their shoulder. Like things
Hmm.
happen. But you have to be able to adapt to that and know how to defend it and not get discouraged. There's no guarantees, as you know, and sometimes it's you can be doing this for years and years, nothing can
Hmm.
happen. Somebody else can get a contract who have never even watched wrestling before. So being able to just kind of stay, steer clear and keep that path and just know that at the end of the day it's going to happen.
That is wise words. I remember every injury that I had in wrestling came while I was in training, and then came from like just the easiest, mundane, everyday move. My knee popped, like, and I couldn't walk for at least 2 weeks, just doing a simple up and over. Like somebody was doing it. I just ran to the ropes, went over them, and my knee just popped. And I was like,
Yep.
damn.
Yeah.
Oh, but I still I watch like you. I watch everybody who we've trained with in Florida, and I see you guys still going. And my fiance sees it all the time. It's like I'm still like pantomiming moves. I'm still like just wanting to do. I'm like, I think I got one more match in me. And then I wake up in the morning and my back's like, oh, I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't probably don't.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Well, that's like TJ once said. He's like, you know, you always hear about the bump card, but TJ always says like you're one bump away from your last match, and we don't always know when that is. You know, it could be, worst case scenario, it could be today, it could be 20 years from now. You just
Mhm.
never know. But I always learn too is just, I want to when I'm finally done, when I finally hang up the boots, I want to look back and go, you know what, I'm proud of everything I've done, and I have no regrets. But sometimes people don't have that option of choosing when they're done. Sometimes, life chooses for you, unfortunately.
Mhm.
So, sometimes you can't control certain things, but that's why I always tell people the importance of just safety and stretching, warming up, and of course, training. I mean, it's dangerous enough as it is. I don't know how some of these guys and girls get by without training at all. Like, I just feel like I feel bad if I miss training for 1 week, even if it's for a legitimate reason.
Because sometimes I feel like going to training and having to take constant bumps and bumps and bumps keeps your body like in that tone foundation of you're going to keep hitting the mat. You're
Mhm.
going to constantly get thrown to which way and that way. So your body's used to it. The moment you stop doing that training, your body starts to being like, oh, okay, well, my body feels this way. As soon as you take that first bump, ah,
Yeah,
oh, that's culture shock right back to it.
for sure.
And that's my worst fear as well. It's like I haven't gotten into a ring and worked a match in damn near 8 years.
Wow.
So I feel like if I was going to even try to do another match, it's like I would have to have I would want to take a whole year to get myself back in like just perfect shape with work or lifting weights, yoga, and then during that year still training like that. I would go back to square one of lock up, dual rolls,
Mhm.
back bumps, oh, and then running the ropes.
Yeah, that's fun.
Like people, I've taken so many people who've never been to a wrestling show, like my fiance and her friends, to a show, and I'm like, yeah, this is what I used to do. They were like, oh, I used to kind of watch it as a kid, but not really. I've taken them to shows now. They're like, oh, and then I showed them like underneath the ring and everything. It's like we thought it was this. I'm like, no,
Oh yeah.
boards, a little bit of cushion, and bounciness.
Even like hitting the ropes, a lot of people think it's like a trampoline. You have the ropes and it
Mhm.
bounces you up. It's like seeing people hit the ropes for the first time and they're not expecting it, and they're like their eyes light up and they have like the welts under their arms. It's like, yeah, it's not for the faint of heart, that's for sure.
It's
um,
like I know with the ropes, you never know if they're wire or I
mm,
know like how the WWE has it. Theirs is actually like
actual rope.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like
Mm.
it's no joke.
But like Natty always says too, like the best training for wrestling is wrestling. Like a lot of
Hmm.
people, people do like CrossFit or people do different workouts, which is great. It's definitely going to help. But and as you know, there's a huge difference between being in shape and being in ring shape. And so I've seen guys and girls show up to training for the first time and they're like, oh yeah, I work out all the time. And they look aesthetically great. And then within seconds they're getting blown up. And it's like, yeah, your body takes a while to get conditioned to that, just being able to get the motion down of running the ropes and your footwork. And like you mentioned, taking bumps, there's your body wasn't designed to do that. So
Hmm.
it's definitely a long process
I
to get.
feel like a lot of people don't understand that wrestling is a lot of stop, stop, go, stop,
Mhm.
stop, go, and that's that conditioning that people aren't used to. Everybody's used to just go, 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 go,
Right.
go, go. It was like, nope, you gotta be able to run the ropes. You gotta throw. It's a full body workout.
Mhm.
I, Pro wrestling is probably one of the best workouts, really, ever.
For sure.
And I try to tell people, even though I know I might get a little bit of flack from this, that pro wrestling is more of a mixed martial arts than actual like UFC MMA. Because in wrestling, you have the technical part of it, you have the brawler part of it, you have the high flying part of it. And it's a mix of that and like Muay Thai, boxing, capoeira. every other type of martial arts style that can be incorporated into pro wrestling. So that's why I consider that more of a mixed martial arts of the sorts.
For sure. Yeah, I can see that. That makes sense.
All right. So I want to ask, what does professional wrestling mean to you?
Professional wrestling means everything to me, to be honest with you. Like I mentioned, watching it in the Attitude Era when I got bit by the wrestling bug, but having that dream of wanting to be a wrestler has always kept me on the right track. It's what got me into working out and going to the gym because I got bullied a lot growing up. But thanks to wrestling, I got into weightlifting because I wanted to be
Hmm.
prepared for it. But getting into weightlifting changed my life because it made me more confident, it made me healthier. I started eating better, so I started looking better, feeling better, being healthier, and I became more confident, which helped with the bullying aspect of it. And then, of course, allowing me to move to Florida to start this new life. I met my wife through wrestling. We have, a beautiful house, we have cats, we have this beautiful life together, and none of that would have happened if I didn't have that dream of being a wrestler. I might
Yeah.
still be in that small town in Massachusetts working at some mill or something, being miserable, going, man, I had that dream when I was a kid. And I always, man, if I just stuck out and did wrestled, where would I be right now?
Hmm.
Could I be in the worst thing you could have is to have regrets. It's better to do it and know than not do it at all. So wrestling has changed my life a lot for the better. I've been able to see a lot of great places, meet a lot of great people, such as yourself. I've had a lot of great memories and moments that I'll cherish forever. So, and again, just inspiring one person, especially someone that was a Make-A-Wish kid, to that hey, you can do this, no matter how big or small you are, no matter how young you are. Like if you have this dream, go for it and don't look back. And knowing that I inspired just one person to get into wrestling and chase their dreams, like to me, that means everything to me. My thing is, you go through life one time, and you want to live life to the fullest and have no regrets. And so I'm proud of the fact that I was able to do that and still doing that. And like I said, I still got a lot to prove. So it's not over
Again,
yet.
you're probably the hardest working man in the indie wrestling scene.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Um, how much time would you say you dedicate to wrestling?
So I don't do as much indie stuff anymore as I used to, mainly because, I'm doing a lot more stuff with training and extra work and promos, things like that. So now my answer would be different from before. I will say I train in the Tampa area, which is on a good day, an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours with traffic. So that means 3 to 4 hours a week in driving just to training. And then our training is usually sometimes 3 to 4 hours. It's been
Hmm.
longer than that. So my Wednesdays, like I'll be leaving here probably around, probably like in an hour from now, making the drive, training. So I have Wednesdays off from my regular job just to dedicate for training because I never want to show up late or anything like that. And sometimes I have people riding with me, like Frank, Frank
Yeah,
Adams.
yeah, yeah. Love my boy
So
Frank.
Oh yeah. And then of course, with extra work, I do a lot of traveling. Sometimes I'll drive. I've driven from here to, Chicago. I've driven to Philadelphia. I've driven to Louisville, Kentucky, which anywhere from, Louisville's 13 hours, but
Hmm.
Chicago, Philadelphia is 18 hours round trip. So sometimes, some weeks, I might dedicate my entire week to travel and training and doing shows.
Hmm.
Other weeks I might not have anything going on for extra work or shows, but I might mention, training. So I train every single week. So I would say, between 6 and 8 hours a week goes just to training. Then of course I work out in the gym on my own as well. So I'll do, at least 2, sometimes 3 days a week of training. I'll do
Hmm.
hit training. I'll do weightlifting. Each workout's different and more challenging than before. So just to keep upping myself there. And then of course promos, things like that. So it's hard to give an answer of how many hours I dedicate a week just because it varies. But I would say at a minimum, uh, 7 to 8 just from training, and then whatever I do for travel. But yeah, there's been times where I've taken, like for example, a couple years ago, I did Mania in Dallas. So I flew out on a Thursday night. I did SmackDown Friday. I did Mania night one and night two. I did Raw, and then I flew back and went straight to the PC for NXT. So that entire week was traveling and extra work, which
Yeah.
was amazing. 5 days in a row of being in that environment and doing what I love. But then I also have a 9 to 5 job as well. So like I have to balance out, working, to make enough money to support myself and my dreams, but also training, doing shows. So there's a lot going on. It's like a balancing act, but I make it all work.
Will you be in Vegas next weekend for WrestleMania?
I will be in Vegas. So funny thing is I've never been to Vegas ever in my entire life. And it's a place that I always wanted to go to.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually wasn't even going to ask for Mania this year because I've done Mania numerous times, and not that I wouldn't want to do it. I thought, well, Vegas it might be a little expensive, and I thought, I've done Mania many times before, but I was asked to do it, and I was given the option of choosing which night I wanted to do, and I was like, I'll do night two. So as of now, I'm flying out the night before night two, so night one, and then I'm ending. Then I'm gonna hang out for a couple hours and then go straight to the stadium. And then once I'm done, I'm going right back to the airport and flying home just because I have work stuff that week. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. And then I have some other stuff coming up as well with WWE and some other companies. So yeah, and that's the thing with wrestling is you always have to be ready at all times because I've had opportunities come up sometimes that day. I mean, I've been at my 9 to 5 job before, and I got a number from Stamford, Connecticut, like, hey, this was back when they were at Full Sail. Like, hey, can you come to Full Sail like now? And I'm like, yes. So I asked my boss, hey, is there any way I could just dip out? And thankfully that time it was slow. I went home, I changed, I went straight to the Full Sail and got to do a cool segment with Damian Priest when he like gave everyone the razor's edge on top of us.
Oh, nice.
A couple years ago.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing that one.
Yeah, this was 2019, I believe. But yeah, I was really at work. And like, you get here ASAP. I was like, done. And then when I worked with The Rock last year, there was the day before. They're like, hey, can you come to Dallas tomorrow? And I had to work my job the next day, but I was like, I'll be there. So I ended up giving up my shift. I found a last minute flight. Lost a little bit of money, but it was worth it because I got to go out there and I didn't know what I was doing until I got there. You always have to just be ready at all times because you never know if or when that call comes. And you don't want to, my biggest thing is I never want to have regrets. I never want to say, no, I can't make it. And then that could have been the time when an opportunity came up that could change the whole trajectory for me. So you just always got to be on your toes at all times.
Makes sense. Thank you for being on here with me. If people want to get a hold of you, where can I get a hold of you at? And if you're doing any indie wrestling show, go ahead and tell them where you're going to be.
Thank you. I don't have any indie stuff in the foreseeable future right now. That, of course, that could change. But if I ever do, I always post it on my social media, my Instagram and X or Twitter. I still call it Twitter.
I still call it Twitter as well.
My handle is the same for both, which is at the Chico Adams. That's TheChicoAdams. I'm also on Facebook, although I'm approaching the 5,000 friends limit. So if I don't add you, please don't take that. But there's only one profile of me. There's some fake ones out there on Facebook. There's only one. I'm also on YouTube, although I don't really use YouTube as much as I used to, but I do have my own channel. And then for booking inquiries, my preferred email is bookchicoadams@gmail.com. That's B as in boy, OOK, CHICOADAMS@gmail. If you have any podcasts, interviews, bookings for wrestling, also for acting, anything like that, please hit me up with my email or my DMs are open on Instagram, X, and Facebook.
All right. Again, thank you so much. And I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a lot of fun and went by fast. And hey, we might have to do it again sometime.
Oh, trust me. The guys on the other podcast that I do were very mad. We even talked about it yesterday when we recorded, how they were trying to get you on the show, but you're busy with everything going on.
Yeah, I mentioned next week's, with Mania Week and things like that. Might be tough, but I do want to get on there as well sometime.
They really want to get you on the show. So
yeah,
we'll work something out.
For sure.
All right. Appreciate you, and I'll talk to you later.
Sounds good. Thanks again.
Great.
All right. Bye.
Okay, if we being honest, I feel like I'm a TV wrestler. I feel like I was made for TV. I was made for being somebody to go put out a product that, furthers the storyline or whatever. And when Sean was like, you're an underdog, I'm like, not the biggest, I'm not the tallest, but it's not a curse. You know, I'm blessed with this size. I'm blessed with the agility that I have.